congregation, in a nation. And as you look across, I mean, it doesn't take too long. You turn on TV and you see the absolute way Satan is trying to destroy and create chaos in this country. It doesn't take too many news articles to realize there is a march ahead to try to create anarchy in this country, Venezuela, Israel, wherever you go. That's what the theme of this. So when you look at this and we look at why rebellions come up, this is really the prime goal, is to create chaos. And that's what's the theme behind it. So we're looking at Torah. In the Torah portion, it's Numbers chapter 16, verse through chapter 18, 32. In the prophets, it's Isaiah 66, 1 through 24. And finally in the Gospel, Luke 18 through 19. All right. Do you have the clicker? It's better than, okay. All right, so I'll just go ahead and just signal toward it. So we start off in Numbers chapter 61. We kind of identify who's responsible for the rebellion. We see now Korah, the son of Izhar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, and Dathan, and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, the sons of Reuben, took men. So right from the beginning, we identify that we have Levites and Reubenites involved in this rebellion. And so we're going to get to the root cause of why Levi was involved and why Reuben was involved as we get into this. And they rose up before Moses with a number of people in Israel, 250 chiefs of the congregation, chosen from the assembly, well-known men. They assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourself above the assembly of the Lord?" So an accusation is being brought to delegitimize the leader of a nation. Okay? Does that happen today? We see this all day long. Delegitimize the person who's standing in power. And so the accusation, we're going to go through the different accusations, we're going to break them down. But the root cause is Satan wants to destroy what God put into place. Whether we think that person in place is of God or not, he always puts every single person in place. So we look at the last 8 years, even though many of us did care for him, God put him there. And so there's things as a body of believers that we have to direct our prayers and our intercessory when we look at stuff like that. All right. In the book of Numbers, there's 10 rebellions. Okay, we spoke of a couple weeks ago with Ephraim and the quail and fire that broke out the camp. That was the first rebellion. And then in that same chapter, we have Aaron and Miriam, who directly within the the head of the nation, you have 2 of the 3 taking on the other. And there was a leprosy that broke out on Miriam. And then we had the water rebellion, which we haven't got to yet, but it's a culmination of several ones that started back when they crossed the Red Sea with the bitter waters. But this is where Moses strikes the rock and he doesn't get in the land because of that. We had the 10 spies, which we read about last week, giving a bad report. And then we have the next rebellion, was when they challenged Caleb and Joshua, and they decided to create chaos in the camp. And then we have them finally decide to go up and fight against the Canaanites and the Amorites and Amalekites in the hill country, another rebellion. And I'm going through this because there's a reason why there's 10 rebellions set up here. And then we find the Sabbath breaker who got stoned. We didn't get into it a few weeks ago, but he was stoned for breaking the Sabbath. That was another rebellion, right? Because in that rebellion itself, it wasn't just the individual, it was some individual leading an insurrection against keeping the Sabbath. Okay? So it was more than just the person himself. And then we have today's Korah's rebellion. We're going to get to in a couple weeks, the bronze snake on a pole, which is a rebellion that people were getting bit by poisonous snakes. And finally, we end the book of Numbers with Balaam and the Midianites, and finally Zimri, who's from the tribe of Simeon, committing an indiscretion right in front of the 10 meetings. So you got 10 insurrections, 10 rebellions in a period of maybe 4 years. Would shake any leadership in any nation to the ground. If you think about it. And in fact, just look at that alone. Thank you. Just that alone would have broken up most countries. Mm-hmm. Most people groups would have broken up just that alone. Because it started on the fringes, like in the Quail Rebellion, and it went all to the center of the camp with Miriam and Aaron. And then it would go back out to the elders and then come back into the camp. And keep going in and out, crushing the ability for a leader to even get focused on where he's going. And that's the key here. What is the root cause behind most rebellions?
Jealousy.
Lack of trust.
Lack of trust.
Selfish.
Arrogance.
Selfish.
All of those are true. But the root cause of all rebellion is they truly do not fear Jehovah. That's the bottom line.
Yes.
Because you will never rebel against somebody if you know the consequences that will come out of it. If you know that you're going to get punished, you wouldn't do it. But that means that in that generation, in this generation, people don't truly believe that there is a God in heaven. And so at the root cause of all rebellions, whether it be petty or not, big or small, it's because there's truly doesn't believe in the power of God. All right?
Robert,
Yes.
I don't understand about the one with the 10 spies.
Yes.
You know, they said, you know, what they saw, so why is that?
Yeah, we're going to get into that here because that's a key to part. We don't have Korah's rebellion if we don't have the spies' rebellion because one builds upon the other. They're tied together. All right, so there's a lack of trust in Jehovah, and one of the common neighbors, a lack of understanding their place. Okay? So in other words, if you do not believe that you have a place and a position and a place where you're going, then you get distracted by other things. Here's a perfect example. Who likes sports? All right. Michael, if you and I are playing soccer, we know exactly what we got to do. We know the time we have to do it, we know the end result, and we know at the end if we score a goal and beat the other team, we're successful, we'll get rewarded for whatever that reward is. But when we start, when you hear that whistle blow, and in those 90 minutes, you know exactly what you've got to do. I don't think the people of God know when the whistle goes off and the whistle stops. I don't think they know their position on the field. They don't know when it's going to end, how it's going to end, and what it's going to look like. There's no clue. They don't see it.
And they don't like it.
And so we just go through the motions of life, keep doing the same cycles over and over. So when Satan comes after you and begins to tempt you with these things, because you don't know the direction you're going, you jump on his bandwagon. And it just begins to fall apart. So understanding your place on the field is really key to stopping a lot of these things as we get into it. So let's take a look at some of the comments. There's actually 5 different accusations that are made against Moses. Let's go through them. You have gone too far, for all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. That's the first accusation. The second one, why then do you exalt yourself above the assembly of Jehovah? Number 2 accusation. Number 3, we will not come up. It is a small thing that you have brought us out of the land flowing with milk and honey, Egypt, to kill us in the wilderness, that you must also make yourself a prince over us. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. Fourth accusation. Number 5, you have killed the people of the Lord, accusing Moses of murder. Okay? So these are the 5 accusations. We're going to break through each one of these as we go through this. Okay? So let's talk about the first accusation. Being holy, for God is holy. Let's talk about it. This is the first one it says. It says, what does it actually, by the way, before we get in, what does it actually mean to be holy? Set apart. Okay, what else?
Do everything that the Lord has commanded.
Righteous.
Would Coptic Christians and Indonesian Christians call their God by that other name if they understood the holiness of God?
No.
Okay? Would people who know how to know that his name is a certain thing, would you be lost? If I know who somebody is, then I don't lose sight of the holiness, okay? So a big part of this is, do they really understand what holiness is? I think this is the key here. I hear certain denominations define holiness in a certain way, others define it in another way, and everyone has their own different opinion. But Scripture is very, very clear exactly what holiness is, okay? Yes,
Isn't it obedience to the Word of God? That when you're walking in righteousness and holiness, you're keeping His commandments.
there's 2 aspects of it, and we're going to get into one. So let's read exactly what was said. But here's some definitions of it that we're used. In Jeremiah 2:3 it says, Israel is holy to the Lord, first of his harvest, all who ate it became guilty. Evil came upon them, declares the Lord. So we define that Israel was called holy. And so we've discussed this before in the book of Genesis. How many times is holy being used? Once. In reference to what? The Shabbat, Sabbath. So Abraham is never referred to as holy. Isaac is never referred to as holy, neither is Jacob. So all through the book of Genesis, nobody's referred to holy except for the Sabbath. So it's defining something as set apart, distinct than the rest is the only thing mentioned. When we get into Exodus, what is then defined as holy? The second time. This is now becomes Israel, becomes holy. So the first thing is Shabbat, the second thing becomes Israel. Okay? And so in Exodus 22, verse 31, you shall be holy men to me, therefore you shall not eat any flesh torn to pieces from the field. You shall throw it to the dogs. And this will answer, Leslie, what you were saying earlier. Its conduct is part of holiness, but it's not the complete aspect of holiness. Deuteronomy 7:6, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people of his own possession out of all the peoples on the face of the earth. So they're distinct, they're set aside. So how many nations were there? In Genesis 10, how many nations? 70. So out of the 70 nations, only one nation is called holy. The other 69, 70 nations are not considered holy. Okay? Now that's unique. Now that wouldn't fit a modern day script because everybody's called equal and considered in there. But God has set something aside for a purpose. And this may go back to what we were talking about earlier.
Robert, but if your definition, which was on the other one, you're set apart to be holy, that you are sinless, how can I call myself holy?
This is important. This is what we're getting at.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is what we're getting to. Okay, just
Okay.
keep going.
Just went over.
All right, so in 1 Peter 2:9 it says, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into its marvelous light. So when you look at the book of Peter, and you ask, well, who was Peter addressing this book to? So we look at this, go to, anybody know what page it is? Sorry. All right, when you look at it, he starts off, Peter, an emissary of Messiah Yeshua, to the sojourners of the diaspora in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, chosen according to the foreknowledge of God the Father, set apart by the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, for obedience and for sprinkling with the blood of Yeshua the Messiah. May grace and shalom be multiplied to you. So when Peter is writing this, who is he addressing this?
Lost tribes of the diaspora.
Lost tribes in Israel, those who have been scattered. It's not written to those 69, 70 nations because they were never set aside and made holy. All right? So the question is, so how does that work for me? Well, when you graft in, you can't graft into something that's not set aside to be holy. You've got to graft into something that is considered holy, which is Israel. This is real key to understanding your identity and your purpose and where you're going. If you don't understand this basic thing, I think this is what happened with Korah. He didn't know the direction they were heading, and because he didn't know his place, he rebelled against that. I think the number one reason why we're seeing the great falling away in the United States and Europe is because they just don't know their identity. If you know you're grafting into something that's been set aside, you'll find honor in that.
So
Okay?
I'm holy because I'm grafted into Israel.
In Israel.
Okay.
Not necessarily beside your conduct. But that being said, in order to be defined by the character of God who is holy, you have things that you have to do in the kingdom. Now, it doesn't get you salvation, but it's the conduct and character of your God. So therefore, when you are, we've mentioned 2 or 3 things in Paul was mentioned as we're praying, when you mention those things, when holiness is being defined in Leviticus, it gives you a whole list of things that will keep you from being holy, what will get you separated from being set apart. So yes, it is conduct, all right? It's not salvation, it's conduct in a kingdom, but your conduct is in a kingdom that's set aside to be holy, to represent what God is and who He is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is key because we may lose the understanding that if I do all these things then I'm holy, and that's not what He ever says. Because you as an individual, Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, couldn't individually do anything to become holy. It had to be something that's set aside, set apart, made holy. Another example would be the Ark of the Covenant, the copper basin. Them by themselves was made up of wood, gold, silver, bronze, right? Then in itself it had no purpose until it was consecrated to be used in a place that was considered holy. All right, does that make sense? Why this is important? Because when we read an accusation, we got to know exactly what he's saying here. Right? So here's another one in Ephesians 5:27, that he might present to himself the church That word church, ecclesia, means government. Okay? So when you think about a government, I just want you to have in mind, whenever you see the word ecclesia, think of the dream that Jacob had where angels are ascending and descending. That's a government functioning with emissaries going out. You got teachers working in different areas. All that's a government. It's not a building. It's not a certain denomination. It gets washed in the modern day translation of churches, but church was never meant to be a sect, a denomination, or a group. It was always meant to be a kingdom government functioning with everybody in a responsibility. That's what ecclesia. So go back and read this. It says that he might present to himself the government, the organization of the kingdom in all her glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she would be holy and blameless. So, when Yeshua comes back, he's going to look for what? A bride that is blameless and holy. So you say, well, how can I be that if I, as an individual, can't attain that? And that's what we're going to get into, because this comes to why Korah is confused about the idea of holiness. All right. In Corinthians, Paul describes what happens when we go against that blueprint that God has set something aside. He says in 1 Corinthians chapter 3:17, if any man destroys the temple of God, God will destroy him, for the temple of God is holy. So let's stop right there. When David got that blueprint and got the instructions to build that building in Jerusalem, and Solomon built that, the building itself, the stones, and everything that was crafted in there wasn't holy in itself. It wasn't until it was set aside for the purpose of God's presence that it became holy. And at that point, it was holy. So just because somebody says, I'm a Christian, and has been saved, doesn't make him holy. Right? It's what's been set aside for the presence of God to be there. That's what makes it holy. Okay, so let's read this verse again. If any man destroys the temple of God, God will destroy him, for the temple of God is holy, and that is what you are. You're to be the temple. So that means only with the physical presence of God in your life can you be defined as holy. Without that presence there, there's no holiness there. Does that make sense? Okay.
And that presence is the Holy Spirit.
That presence is the Holy Spirit. That's right. Numbers chapter 16, verse 8, it says, and Moses said to Korah, hear now, you sons of Levi, is it a too small thing for that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself to do service? What does that word service in Hebrew mean? The word, remember this, the word service in Hebrew is avodah. Okay? And when you get up and play the guitar, that is avodah. When you're singing a solo, that's avodah. When you're working in the temple and you're responsible for the sacrifices, that's avodah. It's this work that you do in the service of the Lord is considered that service. That's the term that we do. So it's functioning inside the temple and also in our lives and to our community. All right, so, yes?
Would that be the works that you do?
Yes.
I mean, just saying works is a collective term.
Thank you.
Does it have to be works to God? So let's say you're helping somebody move. That is not something that you're doing in the temple or anything, but you're doing a work to help somebody.
All right, so you got to differentiate between our responsibilities and our gift in the kingdom, right? So as a Levite, I may be a gatekeeper, okay? That's avodah. But if I'm a Levite and I see a guy on the side of the road who's bleeding, and I go and help him out and forget about my daily chore, that's different, okay? So these are the thing. So when Yeshua was calling the Levite and the priest out because they wouldn't go over there and help the guy on the road, is because they were putting their gift, their job, above and beyond the right, the weightier things of Torah. They were making that more important. So a pastor can get totally involved in his own preaching and forget to literally go to a hospital and pray for somebody in private, okay? Which are the weightier things. That's what I'm getting at. So you must balance between what's avodah and what we are called to do all the time because we are a light to a nation.
Isn't that a mitzvah?
That's right. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. So it's your offerings to Him. I like that. This is why he says when he says, When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. And he says, well, when did I see you? And he says, because I'm watching you, because this was in your heart, okay? But he may be speaking to all of us who have an avodah, specific service in a way. So let's look what he's saying. The avodah that Korah had is what? What was their responsibility in the temple, or in the tabernacle? We know what the priests did, okay? We know what they did. And we know that the Merari was set up.
Is it set up and tear down?
What's that?
Set up and tear down?
That's right, set up and tear down. And they would carry it from place to place. So that was a responsibility. Later on, they became part of the gatekeepers. They were involved, and some would be involved in the Sanhedrin. There was multiple aspects that they would have. So it wasn't just, okay, they're not doing this, but they had a great responsibility. It was a huge responsibility. All right, so is that just gone dead? Do I need another battery? Or do you want to give me another? Okay, let's do that. Switch over. Okay, here we go.
That was working.
Okay, there we go. All right, so to do the service in the tabernacle of the Lord and stand before the congregation and minister to them. And that he has brought you near him and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you. And would you seek the priesthood also? Okay, let's put in a modern day scenario. Okay, God has given you the gift of tongues, right? And he's given you the gift to be a teacher, right? And he's putting you in a place of being a teacher and the gift of tongues. But if you're not enough content, or now you want to be an apostle as well, why are you calling yourself apostle when the Holy Spirit has never revealed that to you in your life? He's never given you that responsibility. He gave you the other two responsibilities. Do that well, right? And he'll give you other gifts. That's a modern day example of what he's trying to tell Korah. Be thankful for what he's given you to do. And don't try to do what somebody else will be given to do. All right?
Be faithful in the small things and he will make you faithful.
That's exactly right. So a common problem that is, I believe, is, first of all, I think there was a lack of respect in some ways, but I think there was a lack of completely understanding their purpose in the kingdom. When you understand your purpose in the kingdom, you don't have clarity. You don't have that fog where somebody gets you upset, right? And all of a sudden you make that the whole issue, and it affects your walk, it affects you in the building. But if you know exactly what you're called to do and what you're responsible to, you're not going to let the petty things ever affect you. They have no meaning. You go to the Lord about them, you deal with it, but you get back to work. You know, it's like if I have something to do at work and I get knocked off for whatever reason. Let's say I'm driving, I get in a wreck. Well, I don't get it. Everything, we call the police. He comes out. Everything gets taken care of. We exchange documents. I get a wreck, or he takes my car to a shop. I get a taxi. I go back home. I'm back to work. All right. I was distracted for a moment, but I need to get back to work because that's what I have to do. That's what I'm getting. You know. And so the same thing applies. We get distracted with people just whisper in your ears, and you get off your main purpose. And I think this says it all here. In Romans 13:1, I would encourage you to read this entire chapter. This is interesting. It says, "Let every person submit himself to the governing authorities." That means Herod. That means Augustus Caesar, or whoever the Caesar is. That means Caiaphas, unfortunately, the high priest. That means all these bad guys who are in charge in the first century. Well, you could say, okay, let's say I'm a Democrat. I'm not going to submit myself to the authority because it's a Republican president. On the flip side, 8 years ago, I'm a Republican. I got a Democrat. I'm not going to submit myself to that authority because I'm a Republican. And we go through this all, and we forget that God says very clearly. This is what he says here. For there is no authority except from God and those that exist that are put into place by God. The word "no" means there is nothing that has come into power, good or bad, anywhere. In a church, a congregation, or in a local mayor position, or all the way up to the head of a country, or even in the United Nations, which I think is pretty much illegitimate as it is right now.
Yeah.
But it's still there, right? So I can't speak against it. Here's a perfect example, all right? I think the United Nations is broke, corrupt,
Yep.
and I could give you 1,000 reasons for it. But it's the United Nations that passed their resolution that put Israel together. So if we make them irrelevant about everything else and only relevant about the issue that I like, who gave me the power and authority? That's a tough one, right? There in the book of Revelation says, I'm going to raise somebody up who has no kingdom, who has no power, who has no land. I'm going to raise him up, and I'm going to put a bow in his hand. Well, and his whole point, the whole purpose of that entity that he's going to raise up is for destruction.
Yep.
Okay? Verse 2. So whoever opposes the authority has resisted God's direction, and those who have resisted will bring judgment on themselves. For leaders cause no fear for good behavior, but they cause fear for bad behavior. So at the core, the reason why Korah is rebelling against Moses, because he has fear because there was a judgment that was put into place, and he didn't agree with it. And he didn't want to swallow that pill, and so he was trying to figure out a way among his compadre, the other 250, how do we change this? That's at the core. There's fear there. Now, if you do not want to fear the authority, do what is good, and you'll get his approval. Whose approval? God's approval.
Yeah, that's-
I don't need man's approval, but I do need to respect the authority that's put into place, whether I like it or not. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it is scriptural, and it's inspired by the Holy Spirit, which means it comes directly from our Almighty. Yes?
But we do need discernment even with that, because there are instances if they're trying to get us to break the commandments of Yehovah.
Yeah, we'll
As
deal
in
with
the case of Nebuchadnezzar.
We'll deal with that later. We'll deal with that.
Our laws right now.
See,
And the Nazis quoted this verse. There's documented cases where the Nazis were telling the people this. They had to release the Jews because they were in authority and they had to go gas them.
That's
and the
fine.
Nazis were telling this to the
That's
girls.
fine. That's fine. Let them document all they want. Get this off, guys. Sorry. All right. Canon is right. All right. If we've been dealing in the traditional way we've been doing kingdom business, but we're trying to change the way we look at kingdom business and understand our place and authority within that kingdom and your position. Right. So if it's business as usual, and that's what you think you need to be done, and even if it's lawlessness, then I'm going to take a poster and I'm going to write boo somebody, and I'm going to walk around the street and go boo, right? And then I may hire somebody to cause a disturbance, and I go more boo, right? And I think that I'm justified, and that's okay. You can do that. I'm not taking it away from somebody who says it, because if there's been lawlessness and you're protesting lawlessness, go ahead and write your sign up. But that's not going to get you anywhere. Even in America with free speech, it won't get you anywhere, because it won't change the powers that be, and the things that have been put into place. It won't change that. Hang on a second. I want to stay focused on this, because this is the general consensus in the United States, and why we have become completely ineffective against the enemy. Completely ineffective. Because we think throwing a marker on a sign is going to get us somewhere, and it's not going to work. It's okay. It makes your voice heard, but it's never going to change, because if we get back to it, what does he say? It says right here, no authority except from God, and those that exist are put into place by God. So he even put that rotten, governor in, who's trying to get us to put, abortion abortion on call. He's put them in place. So do we deal with it in signs and get it up in front of Planned Parenthood with a sign? Or is there, God is really telling us, I've given you authority, I've given you a place, I need you to take that place and position, go after it in my way instead of what the United States of America has put in their Constitution. Put up a sign and go walk. So this is going to change the way things happen. So let's look at Korah. I want to go down into some of the core things. So we can put somebody in by election. Okay? During the run-up to the election, there was a lot of good people out there, was there not? There was people, we could get through a list and say, that guy was a good guy, and that was a good guy, and that was a good guy. There was a ton of them. But why did it get movement with that good guy? It just didn't. All right? How about a coup d'etat? Somebody takes over. Did God authorize a coup? What do you know what a coup is? All right? We look at Venezuela. There was a soft coup that took place when Chavez was in power. The Castros came into Cuba on a coup. Right? They took over by force. So did God place Castro in power? Yes. Absolutely did. Because that's what Scripture tells me. I can't argue with that. How about monarchies and aristocracy. I'll tell you, I'll give you a perfect example of this one. If you do intercede and you begin to take your position, you're going to see things happen in an amazing way. I'll give you an example. In Saudi Arabia this week, there's a king who's basically decided that he's going to work with Israel in the United States, the king of Saudi Arabia. In whatever capacity he's made that decision. His second in command, the guy who was going to take over if he died, did not believe in the same way. One of his sons. So he removed that son from that position and put another son in place. Now, I'd ask you a question. Was that the king who made that decision? Or was there somebody interceding in their proper place in the kingdom for that to happen? Okay? I don't know what happened, but it did. It was on the front page news. We've got a king who's putting second in command in charge, Canon. And now if something happens, and it's going to happen, the second in command will still keep that same belief. He'll be still more pro-Israel. I'm not saying he's going to be hugging Israel, but he's going to be more pro than they were for a generation now. All right, let's keep going. So what about if there's a war? And somebody takes over through war? And the person who took over through war was complete chaos, but yet he rose to power. Is that person legitimate?
Yes.
Yes. All of these cases. It doesn't matter. So, that changes our whole theology when we face these kind of things. Good leaders, bad leaders. All right, so each one of these requires a respect for the leadership. We as a body can affect leadership by bringing the actions of that leader before the courts of heaven. This is what you got to do. If you have chaos right now in the United States of America, we have the authority, okay, as a believer, to go into his courts and pray that there's peace and shalom in this nation. If we can get 10 of us to do this, we can actually calm the voices and all the noise and make it go away. Because who's bringing the accusations before the courts of heaven that's stirring up these people in the streets? Satan. So your fight is not against the people that are throwing rocks and shooting people. Your fight against the person who's going up and bringing the accusation, and God's having a rule in the favor of them. Because his body of believers are not walking in holiness. So when the body of believers go walk in holiness, and they walk in their responsibilities, and they take their position in the court, and they bring the proper protocol before the Father, you're going to see all this noise that we've been hearing for a year, we just silence. Now, if it comes back, then we've got to go back to our place. You see, this is a tough one, but I don't think, and this is what I think Korah's problem was, he didn't realize the responsibility that he had in the kingdom was so important. He didn't realize where he was going, and even if he wasn't going to get in the land, he still had an unbelievable position, at least for 44 to 50 years left in his life. Okay? So, that thing applies to us today, so let's keep going.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Or for us to ask ourselves the question about our prayer life.
Yes.
Like, what is our prayer life really like?
Yeah, this is what I'm going to get at the end. This is how we're going to close this out. Because this, at the end of the day, here's another one. The second accusation had to do with qualification. Okay? It says, why then do you exalt yourself above the assembly of the Lord? So the question is, who made you king? Who made you governor? Who made you prince? Who made you in charge of this nation? What gave you the authority? It's a very legitimate question. I think we should ask the question. Ask the question and go to Scripture to get the answer. But let's look at Exodus chapter 3, verse 9.
My question is, how could he not know? How could Korah not know who put him?
The Korah thing comes because Korah did not know his place, and he did not fear Jehovah, and he did not want to take justice and punishment that was given to him because of the rebellion. Because of that, for example, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but this question's thrown out here, so I can answer as we go through this.
You can wait.
The 10 tribes committed atrocity, right? But it wasn't just the fact that they spread a bad report. It's when they finally were punished that they continued to fight, and they didn't let it go. All right, and they continued to murmur. Finally, it was kiboshed, right? God sent a plague against them, and he stopped it. So the fear of the plague was more powerful than the fear of God. So they're more afraid of getting disease and getting sick and dying because of some plague than they were actually the true one who held their whole soul in their hands. So Korah is bitter, and he's not going to let it go. Anybody ever been there? They don't answer. But you're not going to let it go. I'm going to play this one out until I'm done because I'm going to be heard no matter what. Korah wants to be heard. So he gets enough guys around him to believe that false justice was given out because he never believed that the justice came from the Father. Okay? He did not believe the justice came from the Father. So because of that, Korah had a choice. He could go to Moses and attack Moses, or he could go to the Father, who he should believe truly, and ask him, what do I do now? So I can't be in the land. What do you want me to do for the next 38 years? If I can't get in the land for the next 38 years, what do you want me to do in this kingdom for you? Because I'm clearly being punished. How do I accept that? Because I can't handle this right now. It's emotional. I'm angry. I can't even look Moses in the eye right now. I'm so mad, I'm shaking. Right? So this is a tough time to get on your knees, right? It's a very hard place. That's the problem. He didn't know his place. So as we go into it, it says right here in Exodus 3:9, now behold, the cry of the children of Israel had come to me. Moreover, have I seen the oppression that the Egyptians have inflicted on them. Come now, I will send you to Pharaoh so that you may bring my people, children of Israel, from Egypt. So the question is, why then do you exalt yourself above the assembly of the Lord? Because God called him to do so. That's why. That's the only reason. And so because he was called to do so, then they give him the authority to make the judgments on the camp. But Moses said to God, and this is why he chose him. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? He's saying, okay, here's a guy who spent 40 years in the palace. He spent 40 years learning about the true God. And he's getting ready to spend 40 years of his life leading a nation. And he's going, who am I? I'm nobody. This is part of his character. This is why he's been chosen. All right, let's look at a couple other things here. One of the three basic reasons why leaders are chosen is this. One, he would defend the oppressed. That's the number one reason why somebody's chosen. It's the number one reason why somebody may be chosen if they're not going to do it, because God's going to make a point. He's going to bring justice and righteousness one way or another. He's going to bring justice and righteousness because that's the mandate for the all planet, the whole earth is obedience. Number two, he was able to do what was right even with severe criticism. 10 rebellions, 10 massive criticisms, and he just stayed put. I'll be honest with you, I don't know who could do that. I don't know. Even when your own brother and sister come against you. That's a tough one. And the third, you remain faithful to your calling. Now, these three things apply to everything you do in the kingdom. Every single thing. If you remain faithful to your calling, you don't worry about criticism, and you focus on taking care of the widow, the orphan, and the poor, you know what? Everything will take care of itself. You have nothing to worry about in this kingdom. Nothing. There's nothing that will come against you. So let's look at a couple of examples here. This comes from Judges 6, verse 7. Can somebody give me some water, please? Now it came about when the children of Israel cried out to Adonai because of Midian, that Adonai sent a prophet. That Adonai sent a prophet. Now, let me start again. Verse 7. Now it came about when the children of Israel cried out to Adonai. Have you heard that before? Cried out to Adonai because of Midian. That Adonai sent a prophet to the children of Israel. And he said to them, thus says Adonai, God of Israel, it was I who brought you up from Egypt and brought you out of the house of bondage. All right, so if you look what happens, is Midian is coming and is oppressing Israel in a massive way during the book, in this time period during the Judges. And the people can't take it anymore. Specifically that area that's being affected by the Midianites. So what they did in Egypt, they end up doing back here in the land. And they cry out, and so they go into the courts of heaven with their cries, and a case is being set up. So what happens after that is God sends a prophet. This is key. This is going to work, right? You've got to go into the courts and bring your case. And then God is going to send a prophet to tell you his answer. Okay? This is why I keep saying we need to pray that God sends his prophets among our community so we can get answers on these things. This is very key. I'm going to keep saying this every week in, week out. Pray that if God is giving you the gift of prophecy, you don't sit on your gift, because it's part of edifying the body and making it function well. Okay? So here is a prophet sent. Then finally, after the prophet sent, then he calls somebody. Then Adonai turned toward him and said, Go in this might of yours and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. Have I not sent you? Shalach, that's the word apostles, that same word. Then he said to him, Me, my Lord, what would I deliver Israel? And he begins to question himself. This is Gideon. He says, Look, my family is the poorest of Manasseh. I'm the least in my father's house. I'm nobody. Who am I that you would call me to save my nation? Okay? Did Moses say the same thing back in chapter 3 of the Exodus? Same words. It says, but Adonai said to him, Surely I will be with you, and you will strike down Midian as if it was one man. In other words, don't worry about it, I'll take care of this. All right? You look at all the thousands camped out in front of you, I just see one piece. That's a pretty strong statement. You see thousands of people there. It's just one for me. All right, so then another. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. Now, let me give you some background. You know, Saul, basically, he lost his mandate because he did what? He let the Amalekite king live. And instead of destroying Amalek while he was told, so he lost his mandate. So God tells Samuel, I need you to go out because we're going to bring on another anointed one. So he sends him to Bethlehem, to where the clan of Jesse is living. And it's funny, when the word comes that this prophet is coming, the entire clan totally freaked out. Because they're thinking the worst. See, this is what happens when our mind is not in the right place. They freaked out, here comes a prophet. Oh, he's going to bring gloom and doom. He's going to strike us. We're in trouble. So here's what happens. But Adonai said to Samuel, Do not look at his appearance. Do not look at his appearance or his stature, because I have already refused him. For he does not see a man as a man sees. For a man looks at the outward appearance, but Adonai looks into his heart. This is one of the reasons why I'm answering the question, why did they make Moses prince over the nation? Because God does not look at the appearance, right? He looks at what's inside the man himself, and that's what he's looking for. Because in every case, both Gideon and Moses, what did they say? They were humble men. Very humble, right? So let's just say that you have a problem with, I'm serious. What if you have a problem with arrogance? Narcissism? Egomaniac? You've got to repent and put that one on the altar and get it out of you. Because you will never be called in that place. You'll be brought low.
Same spirit as Lucifer.
Exact same spirit. Exactly. So there's what he says. It's in verse 10. Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, Jehovah has not chosen any of these. Then Samuel asked Jesse, Are these all the boys you have? And he says, They're still young, as he replied. But right now he's tending the sheep. And then he says, Send and bring him, Samuel said to Jesse, for he will not sit down until he comes here. So here's a very awkward moment. I don't know how far, I don't know where David was. 5 miles away, 10 miles away, a day's walk. I don't know where Jesse was. But you got the 7 sons, you got mother and father. You may have a lot of cousins and aunts and uncles, and they're all just sitting there waiting. And waiting. And he says, you can't sit down until he shows up. So they're waiting, and there's this nervousness going on. And finally he shows up. Now notice what he said prior to this. That's what I find interesting. So he said a word, and it came back to him. He says, Now, David, he was a ruddy-cheeked, with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. Now, okay, is there a contradiction? Didn't he say he's not concerned with the appearance?
Yeah.
So why is the writer putting the appearance in there? Because David had the heart of God, right? He knew what was inside him. He's just describing him for there's another purpose for why he's being described. I don't know what it is right now. It's not important to the message. But again, God's not going to he's not going to care about what's on the outside. Saul was 6 foot something. He was a big man. But he let him down. David didn't let him down. All right, so Moses was chosen, as was Gideon and David, for what was inside of them, their passion, their due diligence, their perseverance. Cannot be seen by the strength. Just because somebody looks big and strong or has charisma, which is what the world judges, doesn't make that person called. Okay? Imagine if Korah had been chosen. I ask questions. What if Korah had been selected as head over the nation? Remember his character. How long would that 2.5 million people stay together? How long before they broke up into 12 different nations? How long before they turned on each other? If you don't have a humble person leading a nation, they're going to turn on each other. That's what we got going on right now here in the United States. We don't have humility. We have a lot of arrogance, and we're turning on each other. And it's breaking us apart. All right. So once a leader's in place, because of the position and authority Yahweh's given his people, we have the power through Yeshua to hold our leaders accountable. So this is the answer to the question we said earlier. So what happens if I got a lawless leader? Okay, this is the question, right? What if I have a leader that's passing laws that are against God's authority? He's speaking blasphemous things against the Lord. Right? He's trying, let's say he's even throwing church believers into prison. What happens when you have that kind of person? What do you do with that?
You stand against it, but there's a time and period for everything too.
If he's put that person in place, what's the first thing that was required of Nineveh? Repent as a people. Very first thing. They were required to repent first. And then after they repented, they were given leniency. All right? If God has placed that person in place, it's because he wants. The reason why he let the Midianites come into the land and oppress Israel is because they were worshiping other gods. The reason why we have a leader that was lawless for 8 years, maybe we continue to have a lawless leader, I don't know. But even if that's true, we have 1 second to get on our knees, repent, and begin to go into these courts and try to change these things and affect us. We can affect Austin, we can affect the city of Houston, we can affect Austin, we can affect Washington, D.C. But we have the power to do so. We have authority. He's been putting different people in different places and positions in the earthly realm. For example, he's given the ministry of God's rest, right? Where you're in contact with people who have positional authority throughout the United States and the world. But because of that place, you now have authority to go and pray and intercede for them where they go. Example. Let's just say you have a missionary who comes to your house and stays with you. I want you guys to listen to this real carefully, okay? Let's just say because of the place and the ministry that Michael and Trish have, they have a missionary who comes who now is going to go back into a place, let's say Uganda or Kenya. Because of the contact you've now come into, God has allowed you now positional authority to go and pray and intercede for that ministry, even though you know nothing about it. So you can intercede on their behalf to protect them from the enemy and bring repentance to that nation because of the place you're in. You're dealing with the unborn and in your secular world, you're dealing with the unborn and abortion. So he's giving you position authority to now intercede in Austin for the place you have. More so than, say, Paul and I, who are not given that place because that is where he's placed you in this world. You follow me on this one? The same thing, you have airlines. Let's say the things that airlines are doing is lawlessness. You have positional authority now to go into the courts and pray and intercede for that because he's placed you in that place. Okay? You follow me on this? It can go for the healthcare in Houston, where they're bringing stuff in the healthcare. Canon, Zephy, as nurses, you have positional authority now to intercede in that area because he's placed you in that place. You follow me? Each time when he places you in areas because he wants you to be a voice in the courts for that place. All right, let's keep going. So, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore, first of all, I urge that requests, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made on behalf of all people, especially, I would say, for kings and all who are in authority. So we are given, as a believer now, we are told by commandment to do this. It's not just a suggestion anymore. It's by commandment that we are to pray for kings and all who have an authority. By commandment.
Yes.
Let me say it again. By commandment, inspired through the word of the Holy Spirit, it's by commandment, you have the authority to do so. And we can find other scriptures. I can go back into where Yeshua says, in my name you have the authority, right? We can go back. We can continue doing this. So we may live a peaceful and quiet life in all godliness and respectfulness. This is a good and pleasing in the sight of God our Savior. He desires all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. Know the end result. He said, I need shalom. I want peace in these communities. I want peace in this nation. I want them to get along. I want them to be saved. I don't want them to be lost. So you better go pray, take your place in the courts, intercede against those principalities, stop what they're doing, and then my will will be done because now I got peace and shalom in the communities. You see, you're taking it back. It's commandment. If we had a chance to speak to Cora, what would you say?
What were you thinking?
I would try it
Get
differently.
on your knees.
That's where I'd start. Cora, you know what? This is not as bad as you think. I'm gonna teach you a little thing. Things are never as bad as they seem, and they're never as good as they seem. Right? Don't get too high, don't get too low. Just because he's telling you can't be there the next 38 years, you're gonna be rough out here. Let's figure out how we're gonna build our children so they can have a solid foundation when they get in the land. Let's build their foundation so when they get, they're not rebelling like we are. That's what I would tell him.
But then put his man pants on and realize why they're in that position.
I gotta strike that one for this. All right, so do not bring your complaints before man. I would say this again. Do not bring any of your complaints before men.
Yes.
Write this down. Do not bring any of your complaints before men. Don't bring them.
What about John?
Don't bring them. Just don't bring them. Go to the Lord first. Bring all your complaints before Him. Remember what we told you. Because of the name of Israel, we are to wrestle these things out, right? So bring your things before Him and wrestle them out with Him, not before man. Man will just get you all tangled up, as you said. Get you all upset. Get you angry.
That's what gets them going to where they just.
It'll just get it going. And find 250 men who now think like you do and think where that's going. It can blow up. A 2.5 million nation can get blown up with 250 men because they did not take the message to God and complain to Him. So this is really, really important, I think, is how we go about our complaints. All right, so the next part about it, the next accusation had to do with this. We will not come up, it is a small thing that you have brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you also made yourself prince over us. How many know that we are to be servants first?
Yes.
What does a servant really mean? If I'm going to be a servant, what does that mean?
Put others before yourself. To be available.
To be available, to do the things that are not necessarily the best, the easiest things. When you get the calling, just do it.
Right on.
At some point, the relationship between servant, Yeshua says, first you start out as a servant, eventually I'm going to make you a friend. But how do you become a friend until you become a servant first? He said again, you can't. You can't jump into friendship until you become a servant. I know I can trust you. Oh, I wasn't even looking. On that day, that person was working. Nobody knew about it, but then somebody said, hey, I heard so-and-so was over there doing this. They're serving, constantly serving. All right, so let's look at it. There's a major fear here about the Reubenites. Remember we talked about Ephraim losing their place? Well, Reuben really had lost their place because of Reuben. So Genesis 49:3 says, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the child of my vigorous youth. You are the first in rank and first in power. This is the prophecy over Reuben by Jacob, Genesis 49. But there's always a but in there. And the but is not always what we want to hear, but this is what it says. But you are as unruly as a flood. Now there's different translations. I wanted to use this one because this gives you a better picture. You're as unruly as a flood, and you will be first no longer. For you went to my bed with my wife and defiled my marriage couch. Okay? So we got two Reubenites, who are going against Moses, right? And they're acting in accordance with what required. They wanted that first position, and it was taken away from them. They weren't given that. All right, so that's the purpose of why they rebelled. Let's look at this. Luke chapter 22, verse 24. And there arose also a dispute among them, as which one of them was regarded as to be greatest. And he said to them, the king of the Gentiles lorded over them. Who's the king of the Gentiles? At that time, who was the king of the Gentiles? Caesar. He lords power over people in the land. The king of the Gentiles lord over them, and those who have authority over them are called benefactors. But it is not this way with you. But the one who is the greatest among you must become like the youngest, and the leader like the servant. So let's go back to these three rebels. Go serve first. You've got 38 years to prove yourself before you become a friend, before you can come and step into your position. All right? He's meted out this justice, accept it because it comes from the Lord. It's a hard thing to take, but he just wants you to start off. Here's another way of saying it. Sometimes you got to hit the reset button and go back to start from the very beginning. Sometimes I got to go back to just being a servant because I'm just not getting this way. Right. All right. Hardest thing to do is follow someone knowing that they're in over their head. Ever been there? You ever been at a place at work? I'll tell you a quick story. This was about 4 years ago. I'm at another place at work, and I've shared some of this story, but it really opened my eyes. My business was growing, but it was chaos going on. I lost a big $1 million contract, and I blamed somebody for it. It was true. They were responsible for me for losing it, but I made sure everybody knew about it. And so out of that, and by the way, he's a friend of mine now, and he's a godly person, he's a believer, and I should have done it because it was LaShawn Harrell. So out of that mess, somebody brought an accusation against me. God's going to show me. He's going to open my eyes. So I get brought in before my boss, and he says, your tenure here is going to be very short. You've got to go back and prove yourself to me. Now, I had been breaking all kinds of numbers. My numbers were good, but it didn't matter. It was my character that was at stake here. So I said, okay. I actually did this because at the time I was teaching on this same subject 4 years ago. And I got on my knees and said, Lord, forgive me. I will start from the very scratch beginning as if I have nothing. I'll start from scratch. And I build it piece by piece. 1 year later, I'm before my same boss, and he says, I didn't think you could do it. I was going to let you go. But you did it. I couldn't have done it unless I got on my knees. Mine might have been less than 30 days. Be careful what you do with your mouth, LaShawn Haran, complaining about others, because God is going to use it. Because guess what was happening in the courts of heaven? Satan was bringing an accusation against me because I was speaking against a brother. And he was going to punish me. But he gave me mercy because I repented of what I was doing. But I had to still prove myself. Korah had 38 years. He could have proven himself. There's still consequences. 1 Peter 5:5, likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourself, all of you, with humility toward one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Simple message. Real simple message. So if I don't know what true humility is, I need to study it out. Okay? 1 Peter 2:13, for the Lord's sake, submit to all human authority, whether the king is a head of state or the officials he has appointed, for the king has sent them to punish those who do wrong and to honor those who do right. That's interesting. So one way or another, we don't understand God's justice. He's working the justice constantly, right? It is God's will that your honorable life should silence those ignorant people. How best to change the things? Putting up a sign with a marker on it, or let your lives reflect and your prayer life go against these things. You can change everything. If it's God's will that your honorable life should silence those ignorant people who make foolish accusations against you, for you are free, yet you are God's slave. So don't use your freedom as an excuse to do evil. Respect everyone and love the family of believers. Fear God and respect the king. Wow. Do you know that Peter had the opportunity to sit before the kings of Parthia in both of their capitals? You don't know, but he spoke against Rome. He had the opportunity to go before kings because he should have said they would speak before kings. That's what he said. It's in Scripture. So he had to respect and have a live life. He would have never been in front of that king unless what reflected in his life gave him honor. Okay? These rebellious leaders neither respected authority given to them or that given to others. That's a big thing. You've got to respect what other people have and what's been given to you as well. If you can't respect what your own gift is, do it with honor and pride. Pride, not that pride of destruction, but that pride of, God has gave me this. I'm going to do this honor. Whether you're part of a congregation of 2.5 million or a congregation of 50, it doesn't matter. The same principle applies. You still have a piece of that congregation. What's your response after punishment is true to really who you are as a person. That's really going to define the rest of your life is once you've been punished, how you respond to that and your character that comes from that. Korah did not know how to respond properly to this, where Caleb and Joshua knew how to respond. They were going to have to live out the same thing. They were going to spend 38 years in that desert. Who's going to, how much pride is that? All right. So, how we treat our leaders, whether at work, politics, or in congregation, is being evaluated all the time. Malachi 1:6, I'll end with this portion. A son honors his father and a servant his master. If then I am father, where is my honor? Which Jehovah is asking. And if I am master, where is my fear, says the Lord of hosts to you? O priests who despise my name, but you say, how will we despise your name? Well, he's saying, go and do your job in an honorable fashion, and then you'll honor me. Okay? All right, accepting justice. This is the hardest, when I studied this is the hardest thing for me to really wrap around. How do you deal with when you've been punished, and you know it's from him, and a prophet has said to you you've been punished, how to act after the fact? Okay, this is the most difficult part in the kingdom, is how to act after you know you've messed up, and now you're being punished, and now you're going to have to get back and start from scratch. Because remember, Scripture's about honor and shame. You shamed yourself all by yourself, so now you've got to build your honor up, and it's not going to happen overnight. But remember, the end result is to get back in good standing in the kingdom. That's the result of where you're going to go, is get back in good standing. So in Numbers 14, let's read here. Moreover, you have not brought us into the land of flowing with milk and honey, nor given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men, where we will not come up? And so in Numbers 14:20 it says this. We go back and says, and the Lord says, I have pardoned according to your word, but truly as I live, as all the earth shall be filled with glory of the Lord. None of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in wilderness, and yet have put me in the test 10 times, have not, that's where we started this morning, 10 times have not obeyed my voice, shall see the land that I swore to give to their fathers, and none of those who despise me shall see it. It was so bad. If you go back last week, it was so bad when they found out that they weren't going to get the inheritance. What did they do? You remember what they did?
Took off and decided to try to take it for themselves.
They tried to take it for themselves, and they got tore up. How many times have we tried to do it ourselves and gotten tore up? It's a tough lesson. What do you do after you've been punished? Accepting it. So, in the age of grace, these are false teachings that are out there. Probably the most difficult understanding is what to do with punishment. Problem with theology, it says. In Christianity, they teach, don't worry, God will forgive. We live in the age of grace. Everything will be taken care of. It'll be fixed. We're going to polish it up, and you'll be back and running. Well, the problem with that is that makes God a liar, because he's God of justice and righteousness. So if he can't mete out justice, he can give mercy, but he's going to have to mete out justice. So what should those who are disobedient and despise his way do in a case when they know they've been received punishment? What do you do?
Humble thyself and repent.
Humble myself, repent, and what else? Seek God's purpose after the fact. All right. So what do they do instead? Start an insurrection. Get all the posters on a stick, get a whole mass, get the megaphones, and go to war in the battlefield. All right. Galatians 6:7. Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy your own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. You know what? We focus on the first part. I want to focus on the second part. How do I please the Holy Spirit? You ever wonder about that? How do I please the Holy Spirit? You know, how do I do that? This is a question I ask all the time. Obedience is part of it, but also staying in your lane, knowing where we're going. That's a big part of it. Pleasing the Holy Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good, and just the right time we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. So we have a double responsibility to take care of the people of the body of believers more than anything else. We should always be kind to everyone, but in the body of believers, we have to go the extra mile. These elders are mocking the justice of God. I believe that's what at the end of the day, Korah is mocking God. He's mocking him because he didn't want to accept the punishment that was given to him. And so Korah was trying to convince others to return back to Egypt, which is again was mocking God because that was against the purpose of what God had pulled him out of Egypt for.
Well, I think he was rebelling against his position also.
Yes, he
He
was.
didn't like his position.
Yes, he didn't like his
He didn't
position.
want to carry the wood anymore.
Yeah, he didn't want to be a roadie.
And what did Solomon do with Korah's family later on? Once they got to Jerusalem and they built the temple, they no longer had to carry it. He gave them other responsibilities. But it would take them 400 years before they quit carrying the tabernacle. How quickly could they have gone and marched in and taken Jerusalem under Moses' leadership, if it happened, and set up his temple in Jerusalem? How quickly could they have had to be the servant all those generations? All right. let's navigate the courts of heaven, all right, real quick. There's an accusation against Moses, and I want you to think about this real quick, that he had killed somebody, all right? Did he kill somebody?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Was he guilty of that
Yes.
in the eyes of man?
Yes.
Yes.
What about in God's eyes? And this is a tough question.
He was.
Is he protecting and defending, or is he a murderer?
That's the question. That's a tough question. Here's what: if there is a doubt, because there's a doubt, this is a theological doubt. What I would do as Moses, I would ask for forgiveness if I'd done wrong. I'd go before him in the court of heaven and saying, I'm getting an accusation of him accusing me of murder here. This is the first time in his life. The second time would be this. The second time he's been accused of this. That means Satan is trying to use this legal loophole to keep Moses from leading the nation. Follow this, because this is what he's trying to do. It's a legal loophole that Satan's using to keep Moses from leading the nation. Calling him a murderer makes him forfeit his position because he's breaking the commandments, he's breaking the covenant. That would forfeit his job. So if Satan can get a position in there, in the courts, and make this accusation stick, then Moses becomes ineffective and they don't go into the land. And so this is where Moses has to go back in the courts and say, you forgave me for that, and I want to bring that record back up. Because my accuser is sitting right there, making an accusation, and I want that record to be on record that I was forgiven for that. And this accusation is a false accusation. There's no witnesses of it, and you know it. And I want this accusation to be dropped right now. And he does it before the Lord. This is navigating the courts of heaven.
I thought this was about the people. You know, like all the people died. Moses said, look, if God does this, it's going to be different. You'll know it's God that destroyed you. It's not me. And here they turn around and say, yeah, it was you.
They're turning on, because this is what Satan does. He teaches people to do false accusations.
Absolutely.
And this is what we got to watch out for. But if you know in your good standing, you've done what's right, all you have to do is say, Lord, bring this back out in the courts. Let's lay the evidence out and take the accusation off the table and remove it from this court. All right, let's read what it says. But on the next day, all the congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and against Aaron, saying, you have killed the people of the Lord. And when the congregation assembled against Moses and against Aaron, they turned toward the tent of meeting, and behold, the cloud covered, and the glory of the Lord appeared. At this point, Moses was all in his due right to say, you know what, Lord? Have at it. You said a month ago that you'd start again with me. This is my chance. Just do it. I can't do with it. But notice what he does. This is what the key is. Verse 43 of chapter 6. And Moses and Aaron came to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, get away from the midst of the congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell on their faces, and Moses said to Aaron, so he just didn't intercede. He reacted now. This is another part of it. He just didn't intercede. Now he says, Aaron, take your censer and put fire in it from off the altar and lay incense on it and carry it quickly to the congregation and make atonement for them, for wrath has gone out from the Lord and the plague has begun. So Aaron, he's going to get between the people who have died and the rest of the people that have been all making these accusations. They were going to take his life. And what does he do? So Aaron took it as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly, and behold, the plague had already begun among the people. And he put on the incense and made atonement for the people, and he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped. Now those who died in the plague were 14,700 beside those who died in the affair of Korah. And Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tent of meeting when the plague was stopped. So one of the original accusations was, who made you prince? That's what made them prince. Because they were willing to give up their lives for the nation when nobody else was willing to do so.
It's an interesting example of intercession right there.
Completely.
You think?
So it's not just in the spiritual thing, you're acting out. So you're making atonement for your family, atonement for your family's family, your cousins, your whole nation. You're atoning for the rest of them.
So action does make a difference.
Right. So why was Aaron chosen to do that? Why did Moses tell Aaron to do so?
Because he was a priest.
He's the high priest. And the high priest can do atonement for the entire nation. You as high priest of your family can atone for your family, positional. He can do it for the nation. Who's our high priest? So Yeshua is going to he's going to burn the incense for us to keep the plague from hitting us.
Did he have the incense thing that goes back and forth, and that's what he was doing, or was he
That's the
putting it on
censer.
an
He
altar?
had a censer,
A censer.
and then he had something that he carries. with the
Shake your
incense.
Okay, so he was actually getting between the people, he wasn't putting it on an altar,
No.
metaphorically.
He went out into the camp.
Gotcha.
So this is an example. So once a year, he does this for the nation in the tabernacle, right? But at this time, and on exceptional times, a high priest has the right to go into the camp and save the nation. All right? This is a precedent established in the kingdom. All right. Let's stop right here in questions. 5 accusations. So in every case, they were being rebutted. And the main course of all these rebellions come because of lack of belief in Jehovah. I think that's really the core of this. So, it's kind of a call to action on our part today, this week. Where can we go and intercede for our family?
A quick question, Aaron and Moses, I personally, my opinion is I wouldn't take Aaron's incense as the miracle power, but I would take it more as Moses on his knees and the incense part of it, because I think a lot of people would take, oh, look, he's got running around with the incense. That's the power. The power's in that incense only.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take that. Then how do you explain when we get to the serpents, building a bronze serpent on the pole, and them looking at it and getting saved?
Yeah, wow.
Because God had commanded us to do that.
That's the key.
Absolutely.
When you're given, see, this is the key, what Leslie's saying. In the position that you're given, within the description of what you do, okay? This is why it's so important to get into the commandments, to get into the Torah, and find out exactly what it is, the requirements. When you know, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to look at the oral Torah, I just look at the written Torah. But we need to know exactly what that position requires. How many people know to speak in tongues, what is required, and what's the information, what do we need to know about all that?
It has to be an interpretation.
Okay, so we know a little bit, but how much more is there that we do not know?
Yeah.
And this is the key with all these responsibilities in the kingdom. There's a lot of things we don't know. So this is why he knew for a fact, because it was written in Torah, that if he was responsible for atoning for the nation, and to do that on Yom Kippur, he would bring that censer in behind the curtain, and that's what he did. So Moses says, that's what you do on Yom Kippur, this is what you're going to do now. Because we know God commanded that to do so. That's the key.
That's the power.
That's the power there. Doing exactly what's prescribed instead of trying to deviate and doing it your own way. And that's really it. Any other comments or
The
questions?
power would be in the obedience.
Absolutely.
The
Yes.
obedience from the prince of Israel.
That's right. Obeying, that's right. Their obedience. So this is a real powerful message. But here I'll say, last year we've taught on this and we had a lot of these things manifest. And this is what I'll ask you to do. This is what I'm going to ask you a personal request. Begin to pray that rebellion doesn't come into our camp,
Yes.
or into your family's camp, or into the greater body. We need to pray and intercede for that, because there's seasons for these things. And so now is a season we're speaking of this. It's part of a portion. Let's pray and intercede against these things so they don't come.
Yes.
And we can stop them, right? Let's do the Shema.